Alright guys, welcome back to Urge. We're moving on in the subclass series onto the Grave Domain Cleric.
Yes.
So, if you're new to the subclass series or to the channel, what we're going to do is we're going to go through each of the abilities gained by the subclass and see how those impact the base class roleplay value, combat value, and overall class synergy. And then we're going to rate them all based on how these subclass abilities improve those base class abilities.
Right.
So, without any further ado, I'm going to jump straight into it.
So, as with a lot of full caster, half caster subclasses, this one also gets some specific spells geared around the theme of the subclass, and Wizards does usually a pretty good job of giving you spells that make sense to fit that theme. No exception here. Spells like Bane, False Life, Vampiric Touch, Revivify, Death Ward, Raise Dead, Blight, Anti-Life Shell, all things that fit around the concept of death. This is this is a Grave Cleric. It plays very strongly around the walking the line of life and death and how the mechanic of death and how it really works. A very interesting subclass, to say the least.
At level 1, you gain Circle of Mortality. And with this ability and with a lot of the abilities in the subclass, they're going to be either incredibly useful or not useful at all. So, level 1.
It's true.
When you would normally roll hit dice to restore hit points with a spell to a party member with 0 hit points, you instead use the highest number possible for each die, having them get more than 5 or 6 health or 10 health or whatever.
Because there's a huge difference between rolling 3d8 plus your mod, we'll say it's 5, and getting a 2 1s and a 3 and spending a level 3 spell and getting 10 health, or spending a level 3 spell and just automatically being 29 health.
Right.
That's a huge difference, just knowing that, okay, everyone wastes another spell slot to get them up so they don't get just mauled and get killed by something.
Right.
It's really what you're trying to do is reset their death saving throws, essentially, at that point. But you can just know offhand, like, if they go down, you'd rather them go down from, 8 hit points and then get them back up from 0 to 30 than try to keep them alive around that low mark.
You also gain, as part of Circle of Mortality, you learn the Spare the Dying cantrip, which doesn't count against your normal cantrips learned. And it increases to a range of 30 feet and can be cast as a bonus action, which is actually a pretty big deal because you don't have to take your whole turn to try to, stabilize somebody.
No bleeding out here.
Right.
Also at level 1, going to front load a little bit here with all kinds of abilities early on. Clerics, man. Get on board. You get Eyes of the Grave. And essentially, this is an RP ability for the most part because you can just magically detect the existence of undead within 60 feet of you as long as they're not behind full cover. So, or protected from some kind of a special magic that bars their presence, divination magic, protection, things like that. But you don't know anything else about them besides the fact that they are undead. You can use this equal to your wisdom modifier per day. So, not a super exciting thing because, so if you're trying to is there undead on the other side of this wall? You don't know because a wall is considered full cover. Right. Or in a different room from where you're at. But it would be more useful in a situation if there's a disguised self being involved.
Yeah, or a shadowy figure down the hall and you can't quite see it.
Yeah, or and you're in the woods, what is that?
Right.
Oh, it's not undead. Maybe it's just a bear.
It's a ghoulie.
It's okay, we're being chased by 26 skeletons. Okay, cool. That's so not super exciting because of the whole full cover thing and any other information about them. That'd be cool if you just even knew what their CR was. It would be interesting, CR 3 or 4 or 2 or quarter.
Especially with your other channel divinity abilities.
Right, because
turn on dead and stuff that you get at base class.
Bingo. That's why it would make that ability so much better. But anyway, it's still a level 1 ability, a little bit of help from detection.
For sure. Level 2, you gain this subclass's channel divinity ability, which is Path to the Grave.
Please read this, because this is the best wording.
Yeah, the wording is pretty good here, so make sure it's here. You can use your channel divinity to mark another creature's life force for termination.
He dead.
So, as an action, you choose one creature you can see within 30 feet of you, cursing it until the end of your next turn. The next time you or an ally of yours hits the cursed creature with an attack, the creature has a vulnerability to all that attack's damage, and then the curse ends. So
vulnerability.
Essentially, it's going to be taking double damage from an attack.
The next thing that hits it.
Turn.
Yeah.
So you're basically taking your turn to mark something, and you could bonus action spare the dying someone else to mark someone and
or spiritual weapon.
There you go. Taking that to basically give a bonus to someone else to just do double damage. So if you have your best friend's probably going to be an assassin rogue. Or as we kind of mentioned, some certain spells and things work really well with this. If you have wizards, so like Finger of Death or stuff like that, you can really pump out some damage as long as, barring they actually hit with their attack. So, and you can have some combos with your party if you're like, we're doing the wombo combo, so that means like, you ready your attack for when I curse this target. And as soon as it goes off, boom, you're gonna nail him.
Annihilate him.
So pretty good when it works, but a little situational.
Sentinel at Death's Door is starting at level 6. You can use your reaction for if a creature takes a critical hit within 30 feet of you to make it a normal hit. So that big nasty spell single target crit somebody and be like, nah. Nah.
This is not the crit you were looking for.
This is not the natural 20 you wanted. And its number of uses equal to your wisdom modifier per day. So it's not just 1 or 2. You can actually use it, 4 or 5 times a day. And,
right.
Like I said, it's one of those things just passively there. And if you see a crit, just an opportunity. The worst feeling in the world is going to be like that first crit that happens to somebody that's like 40 feet away from you. You're going to be like, no, I can't reach you. Sorry. I'm so sorry.
Just tie a rope to you and everyone in your party so they can't go more than 3 feet away. Like, oh!
It's like, if you get further away from this, you're out of the safe zone. But simple enough ability, but very interesting and be very helpful when it does get a chance to be used.
Level 8, we get potent spellcasting. You add your wisdom modifier to damage deal with cantrips.
Helps the damage for
cantrips.
Yeah, simple enough.
Then lastly, we have Keeper of Souls, starting at level 17. You can seize a trace of vitality from a parting soul and use it to heal the living. There's some really great wording in this. You just have to read it. But basically, when a creature dies, an enemy dies within 60 feet of you, you or one creature that you choose that is also within 60 feet of you regains hit points equal to the creature's number of hit dice. The DM's going to know what their hit dice are, or the number of hit dice they are. So if it's like a monster and they have like 10d8 plus 30 health or whatever for a reason, so you recover 10 health to that person. So, but you can use it a number of times as long as it's once per turn. So once I said, once you use it, you can't do it again until the start of your next turn. So basically, once turn, when something dies, you can heal something else.
Right.
That being said, we'll move on to the rating portion of the video. And first up, we have the roleplay value. And again, here, the way we do the roleplay value scores is basically how your abilities gain from the subclass improve on the base class. And thematically, we think the subclass is very thematically cool. Yes. But the RP's abilities are not necessarily the greatest options to really help you outside of combat. Because a lot of times when we're talking about RP, we're talking about ways to either avoid combat or things that are happening out of combat to try to manipulate the world around you outside of combat. So that's what we're looking at with RP value. So that being said, there's not really a whole lot of stuff going on here on the roleplay side of stuff, other than thematically. But again, we're not looking at thematics. We're looking at the abilities. And with that, we're going to have to go with a 1.5 out of 5, just because
I guess that's a half.
Pretty much all these abilities are going to be pretty strictly combat related. The only thing is maybe there's some situational stuff with Eyes of the Grave. You're trying to see something before you get into combat, if it's undead or not.
Right.
But other than that, you can maybe do some stuff with Raise Dead as a spell. I kind of see resurrections of characters or bring people back to life as an RP kind of thing because it's outside of combat, and you can make it into a ritual kind of thing if you want. So not a whole lot going on with the RP abilities wise, but thematically, awesome.
Right. On the combat side of things, this is probably one of the 3 or 4 hardest subclasses we had to score in the long run of this series.
Yeah.
Because, like we said, the chances of you being completely useless, as far as not useless, but your abilities not being used, not being able to trigger during a combat, is very possible. With the exception, obviously, of your heal at the very end of your cantrip. But as far as your other stuff, specifically being used, it may not go for a while. But when they do become useful, they're very useful.
Right.
Canceling crits out, being able to spare the dying as a bonus action and at range, so you can still cast another spell outside of that, which is very, very useful. And being able to automatically roll maximum heals on a healing spell when somebody's unconscious to get them back up instead of just trusting your luck. For some people, that is a great thing. Some people have worst luck when it comes to dice rolling. Talk to our swords bard in our campaign. He has threatened to quit a few dice because poor guy's just had some awful luck. But that's how things go. So ultimately, and of course the Channel Divinity thing, that can be absolutely silly. We brought out the absolute 2 best examples we could think of. Because let's be real, if you've played with an assassin rogue as I currently do and as he currently deals with as a DM, you're like, okay, we'll throw something cool at him. Sure enough, drops in a big fat auto crit or whatever, or something like that, something silly, and it's 10d6 dice. I think it's from the point we have now. Yeah. And that's first round of combat. You just drop in like 44 damage on something, just boom, from one guy. Not even a spell or anything, just like
blow stuff up.
Just blows it up.
Where you can get, if you can get an auto crit on there with
vulnerability,
you're just gonna blow stuff up for sure.
Yeah, by the time you hit level 10 or 11, there's a chance for Rogue to do over 100 damage on a single swing.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, a reasonable chance. By the time you get to like 14, 15, 16, like you could easily see 100 damage from a Rogue on a single target. Fantastic ability. But because of the unreliability of it, we went with a 4 out of 5 possible flumps for the combat. Like you said, there's some really cool abilities. Thematic, this is one of the most complete subclasses I think we've seen as far as for what it does and how everything kind of works together from a theme side of things.
Yeah.
Can be very great, but also you'll go through some very dry periods where you don't have a lot of uses for your abilities.
Definitely. And the thing is, like, you're either going to be, saving your party from TPK or pretty much just spamming cantrips.
Yeah,
It's
like
not going to be too much.
Completely forgetting what your subclass is supposed to do.
Right.
It's like somebody may ask you, like, what does your subclass do again? You're like, just wait. That's what your answer is going to be.
Or about to die, you'll see.
Yeah. When somebody attempts to annihilate you with a crit, you'll thank me.
I'll be watching you.
Yep.
And then lastly, we have the overall class synergy. Probably one of the best Channel Divinity options that you can get for a cleric. It's pretty great.
Goodness.
That is a huge... I mean, Channel Divinity is kind of like the main reason you play cleric. It's like their main thing is Channel Divinity abilities. Mm-hmm. And being able to give a creature vulnerability can be massive, especially if you have setups. You get some setups up here.
Yep.
Now, there is always a chance of whiff, like if they miss their attack, and then someone else in your party has to hit them. So, but... in a whole round, if everyone in your party misses...
You're probably going to die anyway.
You're either in a bad spot or you guys are super unlucky, and there's not really much you can do about that.
Yeah.
Dice roll.
Right. Don't have all melees spread out and fight multiple targets. That's how you avoid that.
But even things like Circle of Mortality, you wouldn't think it'd be that amazing. Learning Spare the Dying cantrip. That means you don't have to take up learning a cantrip on there. And also, being able to cast it as a bonus action at range makes it a lot better. Gives you more options during combat to not have to take your whole turn trying to spare the dying something. You also gain access to some spells that are actually pretty helpful that you wouldn't have to prepare otherwise, such as Revivify or Raise Dead or even Bane are some pretty good options here that maybe see a little bit less. I think Bane is a really underrated spell.
Sure.
It's pretty good for what it does, and it's cheap and effective. So that's a really good thing to have.
Yep.
And that being said, so getting bonus to your cantrips, always good to increase that floor damage. Getting spells that you don't have to prepare that otherwise would take up known spell slots or spells known slots.
Wording.
And then one of the best Channel Divinity options that you can get.
Yeah.
We went ahead and gave it a 4 out of 5. Again, with how the subclass works, it's very situational. But when it does work, it works very well.
Absolutely.
So, a really cool subclass, probably one of my favorite thematically in relation to clerics. I really think this is a really cool subclass to play and try it out. I'd love to hear if you guys have played it or played with a Grave Cleric. Let us know down in the comments down below.
If I didn't have such a fondness for lightning and thunder things, I might have played this subclass instead of the one I picked when we started our campaign.
Right. But that's going to do it for this one, guys. If you enjoyed the video, please remember to like, subscribe, hit the bell notification so our new videos come out. We got more stuff coming out for you guys soon. We're looking forward to hearing from you guys. Anything else you want to see from us. And again, I always love to hear your stories. Let us know down below. And as always, thanks for watching.